My name is Tim Richardson. I teach this course on e-commerce at Seneca and U of T Scarborough and U of T Mississauga. About 6 years ago, I was asked to write a very detailed article in Canadian Business Magazine talking about how Canadian companies that have an online presence could be more convincing in what they say so that people would buy. So that was the origins of this unit, this article in Canadian Business Magazine called Things to be Convincing About. And there was about 10 things that I did some research on that I thought if companies did these 10 things, it could be very convincing for people clicking around the website to actually end up buying. Well, the list ended to 12, and then some students made some suggestions about a couple other things, and now the list is somewhere around 18 or 19 points. And the purpose of this little video is for me to just scroll down through the list before you read it, to just give you some commentary of what to look for, and then read through the unit online in much more detailed fashion. So this is just kind of like a little video audio introduction to the unit on things to be convincing about. Once you've finished reading the unit, then you can go to and can find some of the points and see that too. So in the beginning, communication with on the internet, and they convincing, so it's good to read through that story. Sizing. Store, they may just have 17.5, and that's obvious because it says it's a medium. So one of the to describe things, you can add animated pictures to be able to explain things, and there's a story about how detailed information on how the other salespeople just don't know enough about the product. What I do is write down the W, etc., and go home and look at it on the web, and I can find perhaps even YouTube videos of existing. So that's a good advantage to be all the features. Privacy, and we have a complete here, and this opens detail related to privacy issues. Of course, talks about Bill C6 and PIDPD and all those kinds of things related to privacy issues. But these are just some general points here. Long-term use and upgradability. This is something you can be convincing about, particularly for people buying electronic products. For example, if a camera is using a particular type of software that's available in 2006, if they buy lenses in 2008, 2009, can they use those lenses with the camera they bought in 2006? This is some of the problems that Minolta went through and Nikon faced as well. Testimonials is another point which you can be very convincing about. Some companies do it wrong. Click on the rifle, you'll see a bad example. Some companies do it, you can see a good example. One of my students last year, interesting comments about how you can be convincing with testimonials in the context of online forums. Some of these forums are hosted by companies with large branded products that are well known, and by user groups. So understanding how people make comments in these forums as users could be part of being more convincing in testimonials. The other thing too is using humor, and I gave an example here of how I created humorous testimonials for a t-shirt company. The next point is associations, awards, and recognition. If somebody never heard of your company, it could be very useful to list the affiliations that you have, because then if a person didn't know your company, they could be convinced by your associations. And I mentioned this company here called Navantis. Navantis is a Toronto-based e-commerce company which actually has some U of T people in it, and they prominently display the Microsoft Gold Certified Partner logo on their webpage. Corey's, which uses radio ads extensively, also has a good website on which they have examples of their industry awards as well. Shipping, one of the 4 P's, product, price, promotion, place, is also something that you could be very convincing about, and here's a story of how the people at ATI Technologies handle that. After sales customer service, which is a big part of CLV, customer lifetime value, is a very big part of things to be convincing about. And here I talk about the term cognitive dissonance. Just because somebody paid for the product and their credit card went through doesn't mean you're finished with them as a customer. The best way to build your business is with existing customers. So making sure that they're happy after the purchase is an important part of growing your business, and this talks about that. Environmental considerations. More and more people that shop online are very interested in where the product comes from and the different parts of the labor that was involved. And companies like the Body Shop and McDonald's have got a lot of criticism over the year about environmental aspects. And so on their websites, they talk about this in great detail. And this is a story of a couple of people I interviewed there in that context. Social cultural considerations. As you're using websites to sell to people all around the world, you have the opportunity for making more money, but you also have the risk that you're going to offend people with things to do with the imagery associated with your marketing. So here's a little story about how Nike offended some people in the Muslim community because they used a logo arrangement of writing the word air. And there's also the famous story of a Microsoft that photoshopped out this person's head for the Polish version, but left in the black guy's hand. So you can click on that and look at a story. Here's another story of how a TV program cut out the black couple in the UK version, but not in the North American version. So of course on the internet, which is global, you're able to see content from different websites around the world, and people will find these things. And if you do get caught such way, it can be very embarrassing. Gender issues. Men don't buy the same things exactly as women, and women don't buy the same things exactly as men. It doesn't mean that they're unequal, it just means that they think about things differently. And therefore, gender issues have become a significant part of being successful, particularly when the number of women on the internet that are buying things, both on a personal basis and also in a corporate context, is growing at even higher percentages. Human rights issues is also an important part of things to be convincing about, and I've written about that in terms of the Hudson's Bay Company, which established a code of vendor conduct. Contact information. Some companies totally suck when it comes to putting contact information on the internet because they don't want to receive too many emails or phone calls clogging up time with their staff. Other companies handle this much better, and here's a story about those that do and those that don't. Payment security is a killer. If you don't have payment security and using the most appropriate technologies, you're not going to be convincing. This is something I added in the last couple of years. A student of mine, Magda, at U of T Mississauga campus said to me, companies need to be more convincing about the use of different colors. It also goes towards your target market segment, and industrial psychologists can tell you that there's certain reactions you get from using color combinations on websites. Here's a little piece I wrote for IT World Canada about shopping cart abandonment, which is useful to read because it goes towards several points in the category of things to be convincing about. And the most recent point I added last summer was engaging the customer. How do you engage the customer online? This is a picture of me with the very famous pitchman Saul Corey, who has this gentleman clothier shop on Danforth. Uses radio ads, but also very effective with his website. Engaging the customer, making them feel that you really are strongly interested in their product, and by extension, therefore, that you're making something that really fits what they want, is an important part of being convincing. So I hope these 18 points are of interest to you and you find it useful. Read this material through in more detail, and then you'll be prepared to have a good discussions in class.